Hi everybody, it's 314 Reactor here, playing some Unreal Tournament today with an updated DirectX11 Renderer, which you can get from the description below. But today I'm also running it with something called ReShade, which is a post-processing effects injector, which essentially means you can install it into almost any game and add extra effects like bump mapping, reflections, and stuff like that to make it look more modern or tweak the look of the game. In Unreal Tournament's case, I'm going to be using it to add a few cool effects to the game to make it look better. So we open up the menu, and I've got a preset that I've already got here. Again, I'll put a link to this in the description, how you can download ReShade. Put in my pre-configured INI file, and immediately you can see the game looks a hell of a lot different. So let's just have a little wander around. You can see it's hit the frame rate quite a bit. Let's get time demo statistics up. So it's taken me down from about 98 frames a second to about 48 frames a second. So yeah, 50 frames loss. So it's quite performance intensive if you're running a lot of things. So the first thing you probably notice is the gun is a lot more shiny and reflective. That would be a combination of screen space reflections and the bump mapping shader. You can also see the sort of reflection of things in the floor there. It's also this screen space reflections shader running. And because it's screen space, it's unfortunately also reflecting the crosshair there. You sort of see the background sort of going out of focus there. That's because I'm using a depth of field shader as well, which allows bokeh depth of field. You can see the effects of the bump mapping there, and you can also see light shafts or god rays coming from the fires there. And if I look over at the planet here, you can see the god rays coming from there, and the moon again, god rays. Okay, so let's step through some of these effects. I'll switch them on and off one at a time, and as I turn each effect on and off, you'll see the configuration for them appear down here. This configuration allows you to change the various strengths of the effects, such as the relief height on the bump mapping. So let's just give you an example of that. If I switch to the rocket launcher and I turn off SSR, so the relief height is set to 1250 at the moment, and the relief height is essentially the amount of depth you're getting to the textures there. So if I crank that right up, you'll see the textures get a little bit more bumpy, and those go right down, they'll disappear. So you can see that's really what gives it the depth. Especially with those bricks there, you can see the depth really come out in those as that gets cranked up. And then you've got the level of reflections that you can adjust here as well. So this is 600 for the main one. So see, the more you turn it down and up, that's probably one I need to turn down a little bit, but I quite like things being shiny. And all these other effects have different configurations under here as well, so you can change the level of blur, the different type of blur you're getting on the depth of field, the god ray strength, FXAA, subpixel detection, stuff like that. So you can really tweak this to your heart's content, so you can make it look exactly how you want. There's also so many other settings here, to the point where you can even turn on stuff like ASCII, and you can make the entire game look like it's being rendered with ASCII characters, which is pretty crazy. You go back, and then you can put on another one, which is the filmic effect. Looks a bit like 300, I guess. It's pretty cool. And you can even crank on a CRT-like effect, so it gives the sort of scan lines in there, and you can run around pretending that it's 1998 again, and you've got a massive CRT monitor. So there's enough options here with ReShade that you can pretty much make the game look however you want. Reflective bump mapping there. You can see that adds a significant amount of reflections off of things. It's a bit extreme. I'm still finding the best way to tweak this. I've already spent a good few hours tweaking this, but I'm sure there's a lot more I could do, but I quite like the effect. It gives everything a bit more depth. Next up is the screen space reflections, which is where you see the gun sort of come in. You can still see the guns reflecting a bit there because of the specular bump mapping, but the screen space reflections just add that extra level. So you should be able to see it here. There we go. So that little bit there, the bit of the wall there, it's a subtle effect because it seems to reflect off of everything, and of course this sort of dirt material wouldn't really be reflecting that much, so I tried to make it as subtle as possible but while still affecting the guns and other such things. Of course you can see also there that the reflection is also handled by just having the bump mapping on. So you can see without the bump mapping, just the screen space reflections. There's a little bit of reflection from the rocket launcher spinning around there, and there it's totally gone. So the two effects kind of complement each other. You can kind of see it's just kind of a generic shape and colour there, spinning around, but when I flick on SSR, it sort of adds that extra bit of detail to it, so the two effects complement each other. The next thing of course is the God rays. Okay, so you can see the God rays there. So if I catch the moon while it's coming around, see the God rays just coming through there. Let's flick them off, back on, off, back on. This is the depth of field shader, which we can demonstrate very effectively with the Redeemer. As I say, I'm still tweaking this a bit, so at the moment the Redeemer's quite close to the screen, so it causes everything to be super depth of field. This needs a bit of tweaking, definitely. But you can also see the stars sort of reflecting around there and the metallic parts. It's very cool. But that is the most sort of extreme example of the depth of field. Let's get a less extreme example. At this wall here, you can see the background. The closer I get to the wall, the more out of focus the background becomes. When I look back and forth, out of focus, back into focus. Unfortunately, you can see it's also putting the effect on the UI here because it can't determine the difference between the UI and the background, which is unfortunate. It's not too bad. You can still generally see what's going on with the UI. And finally, there's FXAA, which of course is just to smooth out the image a bit. Even though I'm at 4K, still think it needs a bit of FXAA, because if you use multi-sampling AA in the game, it won't be able to detect the depth buffers properly, and the depth of field and other such effects won't work as well. But you can literally spend hours tweaking ReShade. Like, I've already probably spent about 5 hours just playing around with this, tweaking it, putting new shaders in, trying new shaders, and I think this looks good. Some people may disagree, I don't know. But let's try another map. Let's try a map that I know has a lot of reflectivity, so we can show off the reflections on the guns. And you can also see here it's affected the entire UI and bump mapped everything here. So even the mouse is kind of causing like light rays and stuff. But again, it's just a limitation of what a post-process shader injector is. Right, let's just go to Hyperblast. So you can see here the lights there, causing those lovely bump mapping effects and specular, and especially around there. I think it just looks absolutely gorgeous, that effect. Really gives an extra level of depth to everything. And when you get really close, the bump mapping effect disappears and you're left with the in-game DirectX11 parallax occlusion mapping, which again just gives you that extra level of depth when you get really close. So you've got that level of depth when you're really close, all those little bumps, and as you move away, that bumpy surface area is still shown. As you get closer, the bump map effect goes, and then boom, you've got the parallax occlusion maps. As we go down this hallway, you've got the lovely bump mapping around there, the reflection in there. And as we go down here, you can see that the lights around this window there are emitting God rays, which looks really good. You've also got this sort of subtle reflection in the ground there, which gives the ground the sort of metallic-y effect. So let's give ourselves all weapons, and let's have a look through how the weapons look. First off, I think my favourite looking one is the rocket launcher, because there's quite a lot of reflectivity to it. Again, you can see the vial there getting reflected, and the lights getting reflected up above. And you can also see the extra sort of detail around there. It's got the little bumps in there, the little grooves. And if I turn off reflective bump mapping, you can see that effect is severely diminished. And then if I turn off SSR, even further gone. Because SSR also adds a kind of bumpy effect to it as well. So as you can see, switch it on, kind of adds a little bit of depth to it. And then the reflective bump mapping really adds an extra depth to the grooves and damaged parts of the gun, the little screw bits there. Those are probably the two ones that make the biggest difference, the bump mapping and the screen space reflections. As you can see, it goes from looking obviously not like metal there to looking a lot more like metal, and then boom, super like metal. And we've got the flat cannon, which also has some great reflections on it. Really nice bump mapping effect on that back bit there, around there, very nice. Let's get out the minigun, which is super reflective. You can see on the player's arm there, it's very shiny, but a bit of a trade-off. Probably some more tweaking needs to be done. I have turned up the shininess quite high because I think it looks really good, but that could be subjective. Some people may hate it and think I've ruined the look of the game. Again, please let me know in the comments if you know of any better ways to tweak this and what you think my tweaks to the game have done. Do you like it? Do you not like it? Let me know. To the pulse rifle, which looks super shiny. You can see the bump mapping effect really kicking off there as they hit and light up that area. Shock rifle, it's more of a subtle effect on this. Just makes it look like a very polished, almost wet metal, which is just so good. It's kind of a Doom 3 sort of effect. And with this, you can see the slight god rays coming from the shock cores and the shock core explosions. So you can see here, there's the reflection there, reflection down there. Really nice. If you turn off SSR, you can see totally the difference. It's really flat, not much reflection, and then boom. Really gives the scene a lot of extra depth. Makes everything look a lot more metallic. The combination of bump mapping and the parallax occlusion mapping here, and then up to the bump mapping there, and then the reflections here, down there, a bit more bump mapping around there, really gives you a sense of more of the actual materials that this place is made of. And if you turn them both off, it just kind of takes away that feeling of actual tangible materials like metal. So the bio rifle looks especially gooey inside, and when I fire off the big green wad, you can see it's lighting up very satisfyingly everywhere. Again, more bump mapping effects and some slight god rays coming off the blobs of bio sludge there, and of course the ripjack. See the disc reflecting there on the side of the gun, the same nice god rays from the explosions, and the bump mapping effects there as well. And the impact hammer, a bit more depth, a lot of reflectivity, actually looks a lot more like metal. And then the sniper rifle, which is probably actually the best one for reflections, because you can kind of see as you turn around, it's very satisfyingly reflecting everything around. Really nice. Unfortunately, because it's a screen space effect, it can't reflect stuff behind you, only stuff that's on screen. But generally, you can see there, the health vial is being reflected in there, and the whole hallway as you go through it will be reflected. And as you can see there, even this animated portal, beautiful. Really nice effect. Really good stuff. So let's load up another map. You see the water reflecting there. So when all these effects are put together, you can see their lovely reflections there. Really giving a good impression of the sort of materials and the sort of world we're in here. Adds so much depth, looks so good. And for comparison, let's turn it all off. See, the game really loses a lot of depth, a lot of sense of materials. And then we enable them one at a time. And boom. I love that depth of field effect. I've really gone heavy on the bokeh look there, which is the little shapes there you get when it's out of focus. So I think they're like pentagonal shapes at the moment. You can change and adjust those, and the way it fades in and out, adjusting like the human eye. This is worked alongside the DirectX11 Renderer, which brings its own benefits such as HDR, ambient occlusion, tessellation. I'll put a link in the description to my previous video on DirectX11, as well as a link to ReShade that you can download it and try it yourself. The main caveats to this are the loss in frame rate and the fact that the UI seems to be affected by a lot of the processing effects, which is unfortunate. Okay, so let's see the effects in action. Let's go to Phobos, I think. So of course you're not going to be seeing the effects quite as obviously in actual gameplay because you'll be more focused on the gameplay, but it's still there, it's still definitely noticeable, and it still looks really good. I mean, graphics aren't everything. The gameplay of Unreal Tournament still holds up, and I still love the classic look, but just adding all these cool effects on it, why not? Probably put a few links in the description as well, leading to explanations of what ReShade is and what bump mapping is, screen space reflections, and all that sort of good stuff, so you can have a sort of idea of what these effects are and what they're supposed to do. I mean, for something that's essentially kind of faking these effects post-process, i.e. after the whole frame has been rendered, the whole scene's been rendered, is really cool. Because it does tap into the depth buffer of the game. That's how it knows how to do the depth of field stuff, so it knows that wall's closer than the background, stuff like that. And it will work on almost any game. I think anything from DirectX 7 to DirectX 11 or 12, I think, and OpenGL. So you can pretty much make almost any game look a lot better. And of course it's totally configurable. So you can tweak it to your heart's content, which is really, really cool. There's also a whole bunch of presets on the website as well, so you can see those. See what other people have done for their games that they've installed ReShade on. That is ReShade on Unreal Tournament. Please let me know what you thought. If you think the effects I've put on are good or horrible, let me know if you download it yourself and make your own. I'd like to see them. That'd be cool. Give a like and a subscribe. And don't forget to leave a comment. And I'll see you in the next one.